Okay, so thank you so much for coming. We're so happy to see you. I'm going to put everybody on gallery so I can see your beautiful faces. Del and I have been in this conversation for, well, for me, it's been about 5 years, but I know Del's been in this conversation for a while. And it's really been interesting because we've seen that our lives have had so many parallel experiences. And what's been so life-changing for both of us is this understanding, which we're going to share with you, has completely, well, at least transformed my life. And I know that Del would absolutely say the same thing. So Del, I don't know if you'd like to just introduce yourself and say a little bit about your background, and we can kind of go from there.
Okay, great. Let me clarify a couple of things. First of all, I came across this understanding in 2009, but I didn't really get deeply into it until 2015. Like Andrea, I'd been on a self-improvement, self-help, spiritual path since I'm originally from the UK and I now live in California. So since I was 21, when I first arrived here, I had been a real seeker. Unlike Andrea, I came from a very chaotic upbringing, hence the feeling that I was broken and all the feelings I had from my upbringing. But and again, I was in regular therapy for 30 years, and I studied Buddhism, Kabbalah, Hinduism, everything. And it was really when I came across this understanding that I was like, I just saw something different. And it's not that the principles points to, it's not a brand new thing, the understanding is based in spirituality over, as I say, Buddhism, Hism, it all points to the same thing. But there was something that Sydney Banks saw that he was able to articulate in such a simple way. And I'm not very bright, so it was really helpful when I got it. And it was like, oh, I really get it now, and with all the stuff I'd done prior to that, it was always, there's something wrong with me that needs to be fixed. And what I saw through the principles was there's nothing wrong with me, that I am equal to everybody else. And and I am not the victim of my circumstances and the people out there, that I actually am the victim of my thinking about the people out there and the circumstances of my upbringing and everything. And something just shifted so profoundly for me when I saw this. And really, life has been completely different for me from that moment forward. I mean, I didn't have the so much of the aha moment that I think Andrea had, but because in the beginning, I was still struggling with a lot of what I felt was the outside in. It's like I had we call them yeah buts. Yeah, but it doesn't apply here. Yeah, but not over here. So it was a slow transition, but I couldn't deny what I'd seen, and I couldn't deny how I was showing up very differently in life. So that's a little bit about my story. I'm not going to, I mean, but like Andrea said, I was caught also in the trap of thinking that everything on the outside was going to give me what I wanted. It's going to give me the happiness, going to give me the confidence, going to give me, whatever it was, the love, the, self-esteem that I felt I was lacking. It was all going to come from the outside. And what I realized through this understanding was that it is an inside job, and it was already within me. The love that I was looking for was already within me. The security I was looking for was already within me. The confidence, it was like one more qualification, one more this, one more that. And then one day, after being in this understanding for a while, I woke up and I thought, when did I become so confident? Because I'd stopped pursuing it and I just found myself in it, which is pretty miraculous. So it's a little bit about my journey and why I'm here and what I saw. So Andrea, back to you.
Okay. Yeah, for me, it was, I received a book from Linda knows Wendy Halpern gave me a book called Many Lives, Many Masters. And that book was my first aha moment into seeing in writing something that I felt that I had always known, that we, first of all, that we're not here once, but mostly, you know, the book is about reincarnation, but for me, it wasn't so much the reincarnation. I wasn't so interested in that. What I was really interested in was the fact that we are here to love, that is our essence. And that rang so true for me when I read that it absolutely had such a profound impact on me that I wanted to know more. And so I went into studying all about happiness. And it was so interesting because I remember when I got so interested in, you know, why we're here and what this is all about and why aren't we all happy? My mom said to me, well, why don't you go back to school and get a degree in psychology? And I said to my mom, you know, and it was so funny because now I look back and it was wisdom. I said, you know what, Mom? I said, I don't want to study what's wrong with people. I want to study what's right with people. And I don't even know where that came from, but I knew that was not the road for me. It's not that that's not the right road. Just for me, I knew that was not where I wanted to go. And I learned all sorts of modalities, very similar to Del, you know, hypnosis, NLP. I learned about past life regressions. I learned, you know, tapping, kind of you name it. I either took a class on it or got a certification in it. And 5 years ago, we came across these principles, which we're going to share. And for me, once I saw, oh, wow, my entire experience is made through this creative agent of thought. And that includes everything. That includes my past, my grudges, my judgments, my vision of myself, what I perceive the world to be. Everything is made through this Play-Doh of the mind. And I don't have to take that so seriously. Now that sounds so trite. However, that is so powerful and so life-changing that when I saw it, I actually felt this sense of freedom, like I didn't have to fix myself anymore. Like I had this story that, you know, that there was like one more thing. For me, it was like, oh, I have a, you know, I have strings attached. That was a big thing for me. Like, well, I have a string attached, you know, and, or, you know, there's something I have to break through. Once I can just break through that. And once I found that I didn't have to break through anything and there were no strings, that I was making all that up. And I don't mean that in a condescending way. What I mean is that looked real to me. That looked true to me. And once I realized that I was the reason that it looked true and real, and that I didn't have to believe that there was nothing true or real about that, it was like this lightness. It was this sense of freedom. And I didn't have this like boom, aha, my whole life changed. But what happened was I got so curious because it felt so true to me. It was just one of those things like when I read that book, Many Lives, Many Masters, I knew it was true, that our essence is love. I knew that was true. There was no doubt in my mind that there was truth there. And that was the same when I came across these principles and this understanding. And that has completely, first of all, it's taken everyone in my life off the hook because I no longer blame them for how I feel. So Lee is a very lucky man. And, you know, my ex-husband is a very lucky man because I no longer blame these people for how I'm feeling in the moment. I don't carry things with me that before I would have thought, well, I'm not okay because that happened, you know, or I'm insufficient because I don't have that. And that was a big thing for me because I can get into all kinds of judgments about myself and where I should be and what should be happening. And, you know, my daughter, my family, I can get into all that kind of stuff. And what has become so clear to me is that getting into anything other than the present moment, other than complete and utter okayness with where I am, with what is happening in the moment, and deep understanding that the essence of that is love. Anything other than that is taking me in the wrong direction. And the one other thing I'll say, I'm going to give a shout out to Lee because thank God he is a huge reminder for me that every time I start to get up in my head about my thinking and my stories start to look real, and I start to look outside of myself to fix them or change them or make them better, I get a big slap, metaphorically, from this guy saying you're looking in the wrong direction. The answers are never, ever, ever there. The answers are not outside of us. And it's not that our wisdom won't tell us to read a book or to call someone or to send an email, but the answers they don't come from the doing. They come from the being. And knowing that so deeply has completely changed my life. I mean, completely changed my life. So I feel compelled to share this because it's freedom of mind. And what it says to me is that you can be anywhere in your life at any point in your life, and be so okay with that. And then if you want something to change, it's coming from that change is coming from a solid foundation, rather than the change coming from a place of, well, when I get that, I'll be okay. When that happens, I'll feel better. Like, isn't it so beautiful to know that we can be in a space of the okayness now? Because what ends up happening, the more that we are in touch with this inner wisdom, is that those things that we want happen in ways that we could have never planned. They happen in ways that our little, monkey mind could have never come up with. And Del and I both have a gazillion stories about things that we thought would be really cool to create in our life that happened from us not doing anything, just from, running into someone or getting a phone call or being asked to go to lunch, like just not from hard work. Let's put it that way. So it's not that we don't work hard, but what we're saying is that the hard work is a myth, that the more we allow this life force that runs through us to take over, and that's the tapping into our infinite potential. It's tapping into this life force that's always running through us. The problem is we think that our computer mind knows better than this infinite wisdom that's always running through us, always, always, always. And the more that I look in that direction, and that's why you'll hear Del and I say that so often, because it's not a 5-step plan. It's a commitment to looking towards truth. That's all it is. It's a, when we get all caught up, we remind ourselves, we just wake ourselves up. One of my favorite Sydney Banks phrases is something to the sort. I'm going to butcher it a little bit, but we get to tap people on the shoulder and wake them up. That's what we do. We get to tap people on the shoulder and wake them up to this magnificent force that's available to all of us, that's always running through us. That's where the magic is. That's where things that we could have never thought of end up showing up for us. And I know all of you have had experiences in your life where you're like, well, that was easy, or, I just ran into somebody and this cool thing happened. Like that part of our life where we're like, oh, that was a little mini miracle, or that was a big miracle, or however we want to label it, is always, always, always here for us. So what we're pointing towards is taking advantage of that access that we have to this own inner wisdom that knows better than, any PhD, any doctorate, any guru. One of the things, I'm doing some work with schools, and one of the things is like, oh, we need a 5-step plan. Well, guess what? You have your own 5-step plan. So what I'm sharing is the fact that it's not that somebody else's 5-step plan might not be good for you, but isn't it cool to know that you don't have to memorize somebody else's plan, that you know yourself what is best for you in every moment. And that's what, we share with the kids. That's what we share with adults. It's like, oh, wait a second. I don't have to go to a guru because I am my own guru. And being my own guru, it might say, Del and I both listen to a lot of our mentors all the time, or we're involved in courses with them or something, but it's coming from a sense of wisdom. It's not coming from a sense of, well, when I'm done that course, then I'll be ready. It's coming from a place of enjoyment and, yeah, and I guess like just a feeling that that's the right thing for us. So that was kind of a long story. I apologize, but I get really excited when I talk about this because it's just been life-changing.
Yeah. No, I love that, Andrea. It's just, there was like, oh yeah, and oh yeah, oh yeah. It's like, oh, so much of what you said, I could have just sort of like dove in but it's so inspiring. And what came up for me listening to you was, I grew up with my mother was an atheist. I didn't have a father, so I just had my mother and my siblings, and she was an atheist. So there was no, and it was chaotic, really crazy. So I grew up with this feeling of like, gosh, it's all down to me. You know, I've got to take care of myself and show up in life and do it all on my own. And when I was living from that place, and I spent most of my life living from that place, not sort of trusting, not knowing about my inner wisdom, or if I'd had it in the beginning when I was a child, it was quickly dismissed as, no, what you're feeling and thinking is not right. This is the truth over here. So I really, really was not connected to that inner wisdom from the majority of my life. So I'm going to use my little snow globe here to demonstrate what that is. So when I, even though as I said, I was on this spiritual path since I was 21, I just still couldn't really find that connection to God. I was searching and searching. There had to be a reason why I'd lived the life I had and all of that stuff. And I wanted to believe there was something there. I had spiritual envy. I would look at other people that were really sort of grounded in their knowing, knowing something. And I was like, God, I want what they've got. But it was still, an intellectual pursuit. So what I found when I came across the principles, what I really saw deep down in my being, not something in my head, was that I was equal to everybody else, that we are all spiritual beings having a human experience. And on that level, we're all equal. Yeah, we all show up in our little human bodies looking different, blonde, blue-eyed, brown-haired, brown-eyed, whatever it is. We're all different on that tiny little level of our physical manifestation. But at the spiritual essence, we're all equal. So what was happening for me, though, when I didn't know that, I was doing what humans do, which is having a really busy mind, planning and strategizing and actually spinning in circles with so many things, my list of to-dos, what I needed to do to get anywhere in life. And so if you can imagine what that looks like when you've got a busy mind full of thoughts, you lose sight of what's always there, as Andrea said, that inner wisdom, that inner guidance is never anywhere else. We don't have to go and find it in the outer world. It's already within us. And as we learn, as Andrea said, to not listen to those thoughts in our head that are transitory and tell us things about ourselves that are so not true, like you're broken or damaged or you're less than. And once I started to change that relationship with that thinking and doubt it's the truth of it, once I learned, like, oh no, that's just thought that just flows through anybody. It's not telling me stories about me. It's not telling me who I really am. And once I loosened that relationship with that thinking and learned to sort of settle down, my inner wisdom, my Buddha, right there, that started to become clearer to me. Because it wasn't anywhere else. It'd never gone anywhere. I just was so caught up in my personal thinking and my idea of who I was, insecure, vulnerable, whatever it was, hide, don't show yourself in the world, don't do this, you make a fool of yourself. I mean, I had a million scripts going on about, who I was and how I should be in the world. So that's what I meant when I said that as I started to listen less to that insecure thinking, and I started falling back into who I naturally am, which is, as Andrea says, just made of love and peace and joy. That's all our spiritual energy is. There's no fear and envy and planning and strategizing. That comes from the human mind. But that essence of who we are, when I really sink back into that, I, believe it or not, I've never been busier, because now I can hear my wisdom guiding me, not my little personal mind that just spins me in circles with so many to-do lists that I can't even get anything done. When I settle back into who I am at my essence, that beautiful spiritual being, I can hear my wisdom, and it is constantly coming up with incredible ideas that I could never have conceived of by myself. And it's like a little nudge inside me, and it's like, why don't you do that? Why don't you try that? Why don't you do that? And I'm like, really? And I'm like, wow, okay. And I start doing things. I show up and I, the difference for me now is that, you know, it's, you know how children say to you if you've got kids, it's like, you're not the boss of me. Well, my personal thinking was the boss of me up until the principals. It would tell me what to do and how I should be and what I should think. And now the boss of me is this incredible inner wisdom. That's who I listen to. That wisdom is what I listen to. And then I use my personal mind to do some of the things that are required, like Andrea said, like the, you know, the planning and the putting, you know, taking steps. But it doesn't, the intuition, the creativity, the inspiration, that's not coming from here. It's coming from deep, deep within me. And it has a different quality to it. It's a deep knowing. It's a indisputable, yeah, this feels right. It's not that sort of tinny, scattered chatter that goes, try this, try that. It's staticky. It doesn't feel that way. It just really feels like a gentle, beautiful nudge from within saying, why don't you follow that path? Why don't you try this? So that's how I experience it these days.
Yeah. Yeah. I was just thinking like one of the biggest things for me is I know now, and I didn't, it took me a while to really, really know this and trust this. I know now that if I'm hearing anything negative, if I'm down on myself or down on a situation, I know that I'm just disconnected. Like I know not to believe it. And maybe disconnected isn't even the right word. I'm just paying attention to, you know, low grade thinking. I'm just paying attention to insecure thought. I'm just paying attention to something that doesn't make sense. But I can believe it. And that's where we get ourselves into trouble, is that it can look very real. Just like you said in the beginning, I can do a yeah, but look at this. This is right here on paper. Yeah, but they didn't return this email. Yeah, but this didn't work out. Like really interesting. I had a very interesting situation. Well, it's not that interesting, but to me it was. On Monday, so, you know, like the first working Monday of the year, I got an email with a rejection. And it was a rejection for a school, for one of the schools that I had presented our program to. And it was so cool because first of all, this woman sent me the loveliest email. I mean, it was absolutely lovely. I could see she put so much care into it. And I got the email, and, you know, my first instinct is, you know, like insult, or, you know, or, oh no, maybe my program isn't what I thought it was, you know, that kind of thing. And after that, like split, really just going back into old habits, right? Just going back into habitual thinking. Right after that, I was like, and that was literally like 2 seconds. And then I'm like, oh my God, how cool is this? Like maybe I can learn something from what she shared. But not only that, it was like, okay, cool. Like next, it was just so, before I would have had so much thinking about it. I would have had so much judgment. I would have started to doubt my program. I would have made up all these stories that wouldn't have made sense, but they would have made sense to me. So basically I would have been at the mercy of that email. I could have made up a whole story. Look how 2021 starting out, you know, I could have gone down a road of, there's something wrong, we need to fix this, or let me try again. Like I just I would have taken it personally. I would have taken it personally. And what's showing up for me now is, probably most of us are familiar with the 4 agreements. And one of the 4 agreements is don't take things personally. However, what I have seen is that this understanding that we live in a world of thought, and if it's something other than love, it's not coming from our wisdom, right? This understanding, the 4 agreements are an implication of it. So I don't even have to go remembering what they are, because with this understanding, it's a result. You will automatically not take things personally. You will automatically not make assumptions. You will automatically speak with kindness, automatically, just from seeing this. So for me, it sounds really silly, but looking back on my life and how I used to react and respond, and I was telling Dell, we had some silly stuff go on with Lee's family this holiday, and you know, before, I would have been at the mercy of that. I would have, it would have completely taken me down. I would have been so upset. I would have been not sleeping. I would have been trying to get involved and fix it. And, just so much chaos would have gone on in my mind where it would have consumed me. And now I didn't like what happened, but it didn't have the power to take me down. It was like, okay, well, that's what's happening in the moment, but I can still be in my own fullness. I can still be okay. I can still, it's okay. And before it wouldn't have been okay because I was so concerned with the approval of others. I mean, I was consumed by it. But now I'm okay with me. I don't, of course, would never want to hurt somebody's feelings. I don't mean that. I just mean that I'm so okay with me, even if I mess up, right? I'm just so okay with my humanness that no longer consumes me. And that's freed me up to show up in the world authentically without worrying about what I look like to somebody else, or, you know, who approves of me or who doesn't. Like, so that's really freeing to just be able to show up in the world and be okay with situations, even though I don't like them. And it doesn't mean that I don't do a roller coaster. Del and I have talked about this many times. Of course I do a roller coaster. I still have anxiety. I still, have times when I get low. I mean, of course. The difference is I'm not afraid of that low feeling anymore. I don't think that low feeling defines me anymore. And I don't have to figure it out anymore. I just know that I don't like it. I also know it's going to pass because my thoughts pass like clouds in the sky. And I also know that the less attention I give it, the most likely the quicker it will pass. But not only that, if there's something for me to do with that low mood or with that anxiety, if there's something for me to do when I'm in a better space, I'll know to do it because I'll just be clear. So the beauty of it is I'm not ignoring if I'm not feeling bad, but I also know that if there's something for me to do, I will be clear and I will know to do it. So that's been so helpful for me because, again, it's not pretending everything's okay. It's being okay with when things are not okay, and also knowing that I'll have a clear mind soon enough, because just like the snow globe settles, naturally my mind does. When I don't hang on to my stories, it happens even faster. And I'll know if there's something for me to do. So that's kind of cool to know that I don't have to look outside of myself, that I already have the instruction manual. That's been really powerful for me.
I love what you shared there. And, I love the 4 agreements too, but I swear the one that I had the most problem with was not taking things personally.
Yeah.
It was just, that was my Achilles heel. And the funny thing is that I still take things personally. I will find myself in a low mood and I will get into that chuntering of, I can't, what does this, like Andrea was saying, like, what's wrong with me? Should I do something different? Whatever it is. But the thing is now, when I do find myself slipping into that, well, first of all, it's far less than it used to. But if I do find myself slipping into that, I know, like Andrea said, that that's coming from a low mood. That's coming from me just being in a low mood, feeling a little insecure, believing my insecure thoughts, not understanding separate realities, and which is another fabulous thing that I love about the understanding of the principles, is that, again, I'm using my little snow globe, but we all walk around in our own separate little reality, our thought created reality. So when I came across that, when I understood that, my taking things personally went from like 100% to maybe 20%. I still get caught up, as I say, when I'm in a low mood. But when I understand that what somebody else is saying or doing is a direct result of the thinking that they're having in that moment and really has nothing to do with me, that has allowed me to not take things personally, for me to just step back and have respect. Just as I live in my own thought created little reality, so do they. and mine is no more right than theirs is. So I don't have the need to, yeah, like even if for some, nobody's been rude to me for a long time, but even if somebody was rude to me, I wouldn't feel defensive or a need to counter it or say, hey, I'm a nice person, don't treat me that way. I can just be like, oh, wow, they're just sharing their thinking right now. I mean, it's very sort of light.
Mm.
And I love what Andrea was saying about the, you know, the roller coaster. Yeah, the roller coaster, when I'm on that roller coaster and I take something personally, I don't feed it anymore. Neither do I panic about it, because I know that whatever feeling I'm having is going to pass through me, and I'm going to get back to that natural, innate well-being that is our birthright. It's what we all have. So I'm not even, and if I do take something personally, I don't judge myself. I don't think I failed. Oh God, you're not doing the principles, or you're not having, your understanding isn't deep enough. Mm-mm. I just know that I'm in a low mood and that's what's visiting today. And I'm not going to judge myself for it. And I'm not going to try and tackle it and and do something about it. Because all that does when I fight it or tackle it is make it stick around a little longer. I just sit back and go, that's what's visiting today. All right, then it'll pass when it needs to pass. And it's so amazing. And, you know, as Sid used to say that, you know, if the only thing was that we weren't afraid of our experiences, that alone would change the world. Yeah. That has been invaluable to me. So if I am in a low mood, or I am impacted by something or whatever, I don't add to that any judgment. I just know that, okay, bye, Karen. So I just know that as I said, it will pass on its own accord, and I will bounce back up. And that's huge for me, because there is no perfection. We're not looking to, you know, the principles points to how we are as spiritual beings having a human experience. And as humans, we will get caught up. It's natural. We get pulled up into this, you know, personal thinking, and then we wake up and we go, oh God, I'm being hanging out here. And then we drop back into who we are at our essence. But that little trip backwards and forwards can happen quite a lot, depending on our state of mind and on what, you know, a level of consciousness. So the gentleness with which we can hold ourselves during those periods where we've got caught up, I think is just so important. You know, it's as I said, over the years I've been on a spiritual path, and I used to find that in some understandings there was a sort of I called it like a spiritual snobbery or a spiritual bypass of like, oh, I'm fine, I'm fine.
Right.
You know, cutting off from our
Yeah.
human experience of, oh God, I can't appear to be failing. I can't appear to be less spiritual than I think I am. And what I love about this understanding is like, oh no, we are spiritual beings having a human experience, and humans can get really messy sometimes.
Yeah.
And that's fine. And that's part of it. So that's a lot of what I saw too.
Yeah. Yeah. And you always say, you know, it's life's, well, and Sid always said life's a contact sport. And you always say, we live in the world of form, and we do. So, you know, Del and I don't run around with, you know, like wearing all white, although I do love white, you know, at like with our little angel earrings, and, you know, we're like normal people that like do normal things. However, we don't take life so seriously. That's really what it is. It's like there's a comfort in knowing that we are okay. And we have as the book, we have a guide inside. We have a guide inside, so we can still strive for things and build our businesses and want to, you know, want to be out there in the world, but without attachment to how we think it's supposed to look. So what that does is that just expands our opportunities. That's what I've seen. It's like, oh, you know, I've had just people say to me and mention, you know, oh, I'm going to follow this plan, or I'm going to follow this plan. And you look at it like diets, you know, do diets work? Yeah, they work if you follow them, you know, but they work for the people that created them. And that's why you know, the Atkins diet does not work for everyone because we're not all the Atkins dude, you know, and that's why, you know, plant-based diet doesn't work for everybody because we're not all people with the blood type that it works for. It's like, you know, we know within us, we know our plan. And if I could tell you, I mean, the silly thing that's coming up for me just to mention is, like, I had said to Lee probably about 6 months before I started doing a segment on TV. And I'm just saying it not because it's TV, but because this was like a cool story. I had said to Lee, I've been doing radio for years. And I said, you know, it'd be really fun to do TV. You know, that would be cool to have a segment. And like, that was the end of our conversation. We didn't have another discussion about it. And then one morning I woke up and I had a client that I wanted to give some paperwork to. Funny enough, at the time it was the Enneagram, but and she lived near this hotel, which is right near where we live, called the Seagate. And I called her up and I said, I have this for you. I'd love to give it to you. And she said, you know, I have this little window. I have the carpet cleaners coming, but I can meet you between 11 and 11:30 at the Seagate. And I said, great, I'll drop it off. And it was like this strong feeling that I had to get it to her that day. I mean, just this weird, strong, like, stop everything and make sure that you can go there and get this to her. And when I walked in, I ran into a friend of ours, this guy, Kerry, who does PR for all of these properties, for these Opal Properties hotels. And he was having lunch with this woman, Suzanne, who actually just texted me. I don't know if she's here, but she was trying to get on the call. She did send me a text. Okay. But anyway, he was having lunch with Suzanne and he introduced me to Suzanne, and he books our retreats over in Naples. He's the one that put us in that property. So he knew obviously what we were doing. And he said, oh, Suzanne, you would love the retreats that Andrea and her husband do. And, you know, all about happiness. And, you know, basically that's what Carrie knew about it. But he said, oh, you would love what she does. And Suzanne said, oh, I'd love to interview you. And I was like, okay, great. I didn't know what she did. Interview me where? I don't know what the hell she's talking about. She hands me the card. And I don't watch TV, so I didn't know she had been the anchor on CBS for 10 years. And that lasted for 3 years up until COVID. I'm not going in anymore because of COVID and whatever. But long story short is, the reason I'm telling that story is not because ooh, TV. It was because in my mind, I was like, oh, that would be something cool to do. And I didn't, you know, I could have said, oh, I better put a reel together and I better hire a video guy to take a video of me. And then we can make some segments, and then I'll contact all the stations and try to find out who books things. And maybe I need to get an agent. Like, you can imagine how crazy I could have gone over that. You can imagine all the work that I could have put into it. Well, I didn't put any work into it other than listening to my wisdom, which said to me, you need to meet Courtney and get this paperwork over to her. And, you know, so I've had so many stories like that where I've seen in my life that it doesn't have to be so hard, that I don't have to figure everything out. I can sort of put out what I'd like to see. And, you know, it's not like it's taking an order form, but in a way it is. It's like you kind of put out what you'd like to see and then you just listen to your guidance. Now, I wasn't attached to that. Maybe if it was, you know, something where having to do with my income, where I needed to get something coming in, I would have maybe taken some action. However, I would have taken action from a place of listening rather than pushing. So that's what I've found, is that the more I just kind of listen to my guidance, and like I said, I have a million stories like that, things just end up showing up, and I just know to follow that lead. It's like, oh, okay, follow that lead, call that person. It's like, I have somebody that's been hawking me on, you probably get this stuff too, Del, you know, about speaking engagements and get paid for speaking engagements. And I mean, he's just been emailing me incessantly. And that just does not feel right to me. I don't think that I need to hire somebody to help me get speaking engagements. I love having speaking engagements, and they show up when they show up through meeting people or whatever, but that doesn't feel right to me. Now, if somebody, and it's funny because he's been hawking me so much, I feel like he does deserve an answer, but and I want to tell him, my wisdom is telling me you're not the right person for me. But what I'm saying is that I have, like, we were looking for health insurance. Well, you know, once you go online and put in that you're looking for health insurance, you get a bazillion people calling you. Well, one person in particular, I just liked the sound of their text message. And like, that's my person. I know it sounds really silly, but I'm just listening to my guidance, you know, just listening to my guidance. Oh, this feels good. This doesn't feel good. And that's been just first of all, it's just taken a lot of heavy lifting off of my plate. And it's always on target. You know, it might not look in the moment like the right thing, but you know, like I'm sure you've had situations where you've trusted your gut and you've been so thankful that you did, and then other situations where you didn't listen to your gut and you're kicking yourself. Well, this points in the direction of always listening to your gut, because that's coming through you. That's the life force that's running through us. It's the same stuff that makes grass grow and an acorn become an oak tree, and you know, the sun sit up there in the sky, or whatever the heck it's doing. You know, there's something so much greater than us that created us, that's running through us. And it's not religious, it's just the essence of who we are. And we get to like explore that and grab onto that and take advantage of it. So for me, it's just taken so much of the busy work off of my plate.
I love that. While you were talking, I was thinking about my experience of having like zero plan and how it played out. I mean, mine goes back a very long time ago, but I was 21. I was living in London. I had studied fashion design at school, but I didn't think of going anywhere with it really. I don't know. I was fascinated with by psychology. That's what I wanted to go back to college to do. But it just so happened, like on a Saturday, a friend of mine who was staying in LA called me and said, I have a free ticket that needs to be used. Do you want to come to LA? And I was, you know, my little personal thinking was, I can't, I shouldn't, and everything. But there was something inside me saying, just go, just go. So the ticket was the next day. So I had no plans. It was really just like, say no, say now. It's got to be used by tomorrow. And it just so happened that my car had been stolen the night before. So again, my thinking was, oh my God, I've reported the car, but there was a part of me that thought I should stay and take care of things. The other part of me was like, get on that plane. So anyway, I got on the plane and I came over to the States, and I was 21, and within the first week of being here, it was an open-ended ticket. I was planning on being here for about 3 weeks. I was wearing a jacket I'd made for myself, and I was at a party, and somebody came up to me and said, oh my God, where did you get that jacket? And I said, well, I made it. And they were like, wow, you design and you make? And I was like, yeah. And he goes, here's my card. If you want to work in Hollywood, give me a call. I'm thinking, yeah, sure. So anyway, gave him a call. And he didn't hit on, well, he slightly hit on me, but he did give my number and my name to all these British costume designers it was in the early 80s. It was, you know, the second British invasion. And I started working by week 2. And I had a place to go back to college to do psychology. And I called them up and I'm like, I've sort of got this opportunity here. And they were like, oh no, wonderful, stay, take a year, come back, we'll hold your place for next September. So I was like, wow, that's great. And then I got the money from the stolen car, and I just had a little bit of stuff in my apartment. And my brother said, I'll go pack it up for you. And I just laughed sometimes because it was like none of it was planned. But there was something inside me and I was very responsible and had all these, you know, things planned. And there was something inside me that was like, pick up that golden thread and just see where it takes you. And I'm so grateful that I ignored that personal thinking of you shouldn't, it's not responsible, don't do that, because it was so easy. It was so easy. And I love, sometimes I think, oh my God, how many people study fashion design in the UK and think, I'd love to go work in Hollywood. How do I do it? And it didn't even occur to me, but I just found myself there by following those nudges. And I had, you know, up until the day I gave birth to my son, I was not planning on giving up my career. I just happened to fall madly in love with this little baby and knew it wasn't something I could sustain. But I had 15 years of the most incredible, well, 13 of this business that I loved and was so full of joy. Plus, I was in LA where spirituality and all of this stuff was so accessible. Whereas if I stayed in the UK, I just don't think I would have come across that. And here I am today going, you know, I did a master's in spiritual psychology. Here I am today back where I wanted to be, but I had a great ride in between of having an amazing career, doing costume design, plus building up my you know, my spiritual studies and my spiritual psychology studies. So it all came out beautifully. But I didn't let the limiting thinking stop me. I just thought, you know what, this sounds good for right now. This sounds interesting. And I just pursued what was right in front of me. And I think sometimes when we set goals for ourselves, we're so looking far off into the horizon of this will be good for me, I want this, that we're completely not seeing what's right in front of us, what wisdom is guiding us, the next step, the next step. So that's my story of following my wisdom before I even knew I had wisdom.
Yeah, yeah. That is an incredible story because you've had such an amazing career. It's so much fun.
It has been. And you too. So do you think we should open it up for some
Yeah.
questions?
Yes. Great minds think alike, girl. I was just thinking the same thing. Does anybody have any questions? Yeah.
Lynn?
Can you unmute yourself, Lynn? Hold on. Let me see. I might be able to do it. Oh, you have to unmute yourself. There you go.
Okay,
Thank you.
there I am.
Hi, dear.
My question was, and I started to hear some of the answer, but how do you start to quiet that noise? I'm just trying to figure out because I hear what you're saying and I love what you're saying, but I think of the snow globe and I just can't figure out that to quiet it all and get the flakes to settle down. And I think, you know, yes, I just need to believe and trust in myself and listen to myself and have faith that it's there. And I guess that's how that little seed is planted. And that once you tell yourself that more and more, it builds. Is that kind of on the right?
Can I answer that?
Yes. Yes. Go ahead.
Because for me, what the pivotal point, I remember it was Linda Pransky. I remember I was doing a menteeship with her and I was sharing my insecure thinking with me and she sort of just looked like a bit aghast. She was just like, why do you believe that stuff? And I was like, well, because those are my thoughts. And she's like, don't you know they're nonsense? You know, they're like, well, Linda's quite, you know, she goes, that's just bullshit. It's like,
Yeah.
bullshit. And I was like, sort of sitting there going, what? But it was amazing because she said, that's just like, it's like trying to tune in to a radio station that's staticky and listen to more bullshit. It's like, why would you do that? And I was like, oh, I thought we all did that. You're like, you know, that's just what we do. And she goes, well, not if you know it's bullshit. You just don't, you know, no. It's like you just get about your business. You don't, it's like tuning into it, getting in there and trying to dissect it and understand it. It's like when you know that it's just static, it sort of fades into the background naturally. And so for me, I always describe it as changing the relationship to our thinking, not the thinking, not the content, because that's just going to do what our personal minds do. Just starts having lots of activity in it. So when we change our relationship with it, in the sense that we don't tune into it, we don't believe it, we don't think it's valuable, we just know it's static, you naturally start to lessen your listening to it. It just, so you naturally quiet down.
Yeah.
So that's, for me, that's the changing the relationship, changing how you view it, changing how important it is to you.
Yeah.
To me, it's not important anymore. So, as I said, so I get caught up. Sometimes I'm going, oh God, I just got kidnapped by my thinking. Take a deep breath, plop back down. So I don't know if that was helpful or not.
It was. It was.
Yeah. The other thing that I just wanted to add to that is the more, here's the thing, once you see this in action in your life, like actually see that the transitory nature of thought, like really see it, it's like you see that the joke's on you. Like you see that all this time you've been fooling yourself. Like that's what's happened to me. It's like once I saw, oh, wait a second, like their thought is a principle, just like gravity. And I use gravity to my advantage. You know, I don't get out on my deck and think, well, maybe today I'll float if I walk off, you know, I use it to my advantage. Well, once you see that this is a principle, it's the only way that we can actually experience life is through this creative agent. And it comes and it goes and it's going to fool us. And you know, if it's anything other than loving, I know that I'm all up in my personal thinking, which makes up all kinds of bullshit stories about myself and everybody else. So once you like catch wise to that and you see it, like actually that it's science, it's physics, you know, it's not like, oh, that's a good idea. Like this is the physics of how we work. Then it's like you just get more used to it. It's almost like going to yoga. You know, the first time you go to yoga, you're like, down dog, I can't do this damn down dog. What are they, crazy? But then you keep going every day and you're like, oh, I kind of like down dog. Like it just becomes part of your, you stop fooling yourself, almost like learning a language, you know, like in the beginning, you know, you're reading, you know, yo soy Andrea, you know, and then you're like, you know, yo hablo español, and you don't even have to think about it, you know. It's like that. It's like that. So the fact that you are wise to it, Lynn, like that's all you need. Like the fact that you're wise to it is all you need. That's it. Because then it just becomes so interesting. Like what happened for me and what happened for Dell. It's like, oh, I can't stop looking in this direction because this is a cool direction to look in. You know, this is where all the good stuff is. This is where all the good feelings are. This is where my freedom lies. So I'm going to continue to look in this direction. You know, it's like if there's liver on your plate or, you know, sushi, girl, I know you're going to pick the sushi. So, you know what I'm saying? You'll see the liver that it's there, unless it's chopped liver. I know you'll eat chopped liver, but you know what I'm saying? Like you'll see that it's there, but you're not going to take a bite of it. You're going to go for the sushi because you enjoy sushi more. It's like that.
Right. Seek the reward.
Okay. Yeah. And just here's the thing. We take our thinking so seriously. You know, we take it to the bank like, oh my God, this is real. And, you know, I have to do something about it. And when we're in that mode where we think we have to do something about it, we're probably not in a really good state of mind. When we're in a state of clarity, if there's something for us to do, we will know it. We will know it. It will be so clear.
I just wanted to add something to that.
Yes, please.
What happened for me is when I started to not believe that thinking, as Andrea said, I mean, I can discern between feeling good, having good thinking, and that sort of negative, I don't, you know, constricted, judgmental thinking. When I started to know, or when I, you know, which Linda so beautifully helped me see, was that was, you know, just not, it was lies. It wasn't truth. It just wasn't. When I started to see that, what naturally happened is I started to show up in the world so differently. I mean, prior to that, I thought I was an introvert. I was shy. I was whatever I was so constricted. And then as I started to go, oh my God, that's just BS. I naturally started to just show up differently. I started doing things that, yeah, they were a little scary for me. Like I have a podcast and a YouTube radio show that I do that initially it'd be like, I can't do that. But it was then the second thought was, but that's just a thought. You don't have to believe. So it's like, okay, maybe I can do that. So everything just opened up for me. As soon as I started ignoring those can'ts, shouldn'ts, whatever, and there was the possibility of, we'll just see. And it was so funny. I just want to say this one last thing. Years ago, I'd done a Myers-Briggs where I was an introvert. and I had to do one again just prior, like probably, oh, it's a year ago or so now, but like about 18 months ago. And I showed up as an extrovert, and I started laughing, and I thought, all my life I've been, you know, because they say this is, you know, it's a lifetime, it never changes, this is what you are, this is just
Right,
the
right.
point. And I showed up completely differently, and I just started laughing. I thought, that's the principles, because I let go of my idea of who I was. And because I didn't believe it anymore, I could show up however I wanted, and I could rewrite who I was. It was brilliant. It was just so fascinating to see that.
That is really cool.
Yeah. Does
Really
anybody
cool.
else have any questions?
I don't think I see anything. Okay. All right. Super. I can't see everybody, but thank
No.
you. Okay, no more questions. So perfect. Thank you so much, everybody, for coming. And we're going to have another one next Thursday. So we'll send you guys an email. And Del and I have a course, an 8-week course that's coming up at the towards the end of January, where we dive really deeply into this understanding. And each week we go over another topic. We talk about our health, addiction, relationships, our, you know, following what it is that we want to learn and create in the world, all sorts of stuff. So that's coming up. But we'd love to see you guys next week. If you want to join us on Thursday, I will send you all an email. And this is our favorite conversation to have. So if you have any questions, please email us. We love to share what we see, because it's been so life-changing for both of us.
Yeah. And we're also going to be putting the recording up on on our Facebook pages.
Yes.
So if you know of anybody you think might benefit from the conversation, you're welcome to share it. And
Yes.
it's been lovely having you on. And thank you so much for
Yes.
joining in the conversation. And look forward to seeing you possibly next week. And if not, have a wonderful rest of your day and your week and the new year.
Yes. It's going to be good, Del.
You know what?
Make it good.
we laugh in the principles. It's like, you know, every second of every day can be a new year, because it's just all we have to do is see something differently.
Yeah,
So
that's
a brand
right.
new start. So, but anyway, so lovely having you all here. Take care.
Yes.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you. Mwah.